Welcome to Ressa's Take. I'm so glad you're here. Each week, we will tackle some common challenges that we all often experience in life, and I'll share my take on the topic, along with some of my learnings from my own experiences. This is all about navigating life together and unlocking our best selves, one conversation at a time. Hello, everybody. It's your girl, Ressa. Thank you for tuning in today for another episode of Ressa's Take. Today's topic is one that I think will resonate with many of you. We're going to be talking about finding our North Star for our careers. The average person spends about 90,000 hours of working in their lifetime, and that number is just so wild to me. Doesn't hearing that suddenly make you pause and think about whether or not you're making the most of that time? This may suddenly feel like a lot of pressure, but it doesn't need to, and it shouldn't. The key to making the most of the time that you spend and to having a fulfilling career is finding out how to align your career with your values and your purpose. Now, it may be unlikely that every single person can find a career that entirely feels like a dream or is fully aligned to their purpose. That would be amazing. But I know it's not always that easy. But even if each job isn't perfect, because we know that no job is, when we're clear on what matters to us, when we're clear on what we value, what our passions are, we can identify opportunities throughout our career that align with those things. And that can help make our career journey so much more fulfilling. I always refer to this as your North Star. It's a principle that I've used throughout my career, and it's always served me well. I ask myself a set of questions to help me think about what matters most to me in my career. I write that down and I reference it any time that I'm considering a new career move. I'll talk more about that in just a little bit later in this episode. It's just important for us to know that whether you're just starting your career or you're a seasoned professional, it's never too early or too late to find your North Star. Today, I have one of my best friends, Felecia, here with me. We've been friends for over 15 years. We've seen each other grow up and navigate life and our careers. And it's been really cool, honestly, to see how we've both grown over the years. I invited Felecia today for this conversation for a few reasons. With me knowing her career journey thus far, I personally think it'll resonate with a lot of people. She's taken risks and made a career shift to pursue opportunities that were more aligned to her passions and her professional interests. She's also recently launched her own career coaching business, The Little Big Things, where she offers practical advice to help others build meaningful careers. So, welcome to Ressa's Take, Felecia.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to have you here today. Before we get started, can you tell the listeners a bit about you as a person? And then if you could also just share a little bit about the Little Big Things.
Oh, yes. Okay. So, I am a mother. I'm a wife. I do work in learning development for a global real estate organization, which is lots of fun. I recently started my own consulting business, which is all focused on career coaching, which is called The Little Big Things. And it's really all focused on those little things, those little changes that we make that have big impact in our professional and our personal lives. And it's really about making a career that is a reflection of you instead of the other way around.
I would love if we could start talking a bit about your career journey. You recently changed both industries and roles. Can you share what led you to make that shift and how you were able to make it happen?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I just had a moment with myself where I felt like I was on autopilot. Like, I don't even know how I
Mm,
got here. I don't know if you've ever felt that way before, but I
yeah.
one time just asked myself, it was one day, I'm like, am I even happy? Like,
Mm.
do I want to be here? And it was really that moment of self-reflection and asking myself those right questions that made me want to make a change.
And I feel like for a lot of people, that decision could feel like a big risk. So, what gave you the courage to take that step?
It's interesting. I asked myself this question and it changed my entire perspective. If I died tomorrow, was I happy with spending 40 plus hours a week of my life every week at this job or in this career that I wasn't even happy in, that I wasn't even feeling fulfilled by? So I think that's what really gave me that courage.
And when you made that shift, maybe talk a little bit about the difference between the work you were doing in your prior role and where you are now? Because you made the shift from property management to learning and development, which like you would never think that those two would
Right.
connect. So maybe talk a little bit about the work you used to do, the work you do now, and what were some of the skills that you had that you felt were transferable to your new role?
Yeah. So as you said, I worked in property management. I was in property management for 10 years. I don't even know how I got there. It was one of those things where someone said, "I think you would be really good at this." And I was just so hungry for the opportunity. I was like, "Yes, yes, whatever I can do to grow." Right. And then I got to that point where I'm managing different real estate assets for clients. I'm working on financial reporting. I'm interfacing with different vendors and building relationships with people. But overall, I just didn't feel fulfilled. Like I didn't feel like this was aligned to my real core values of what I wanted to do, the experiences I wanted to have, and the impact that I wanted to make. So that's what really then led me to learning and development was asking myself those questions. Moving from property management to learning and development, it's a big change. Yes, I know it's a huge change there. And one thing I focused on, and I think there's this misconception when changing careers, like I don't have all of those skills that you need, right? Well, you have the transferable skills, you have the emotional skills, your EQ skills, which are the most durable skills that you need. So I put more of a focus on what were my transferable skills, whether that was my emotional awareness skills, my communication skills, knowing my audience, my motivation behind it, understanding my passions and my values and how that aligned to the work that we were doing. I think if we use that as a focus point more of what are your actual real skills that can be applied outside of your tactical, technical skills that could be learned on the job.
So I've been with you along this journey just as your friend, as you were finding yourself. And can you just talk a little bit about what that journey looked like? Because I feel like sometimes people feel like it happens quick or like I apply and then it works out. Like, what are some of the things you did knowing that you wanted to make that shift?
I love that you're asking me this because without you, this would have been even more of a complicated journey for me. But to answer your question, it's having conversations like you and I had. I reached out to you. I remember having this exact same conversation of how do I start this? I don't even know where to go. And what you had said to me was, well, think about it this way. What are some experiences you had in your previous roles that you really enjoyed? What are some experiences that you don't want to have again? What are the non-negotiables for you? Like for me, it was like, I don't want to sit 8 hours a day doing financial reporting. That's just like a non-negotiable. Maybe for other people, it's great, but for me, it wasn't. Right. And then what are some experiences you want in the future? When you asked me those questions, that really helped put in perspective the direction that I wanted to head in. And then what did that journey look like for me? Well, didn't happen overnight. There's a huge amount of self discovery, like we already discussed, but then there's really networking and really making those meaningful connections and reaching out to people that are already in the industry. And I always say this, but you have to reach out to the people who are actually doing the work too to get that real perspective of their day to day, what projects they're working on. Like they're going to be able to give you the real details of what's going on inside their day to day. Now, when you speak to senior leadership, which I always recommend to do too afterwards, is they're going to give you that bigger picture. They're going to be able to give you more of those sometimes vague answers where someone who's actually in it can give you more of those detailed answers and give you some better perspective.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I promise I wasn't fishing for you to mention that I helped you along that journey. I think part of that is really just important for people to see that it's not like you woke up one day, you applied to a job and it happened. You were very intentional about getting clear on what you wanted to do next before you made that shift, talking with people that do the work today, as you mentioned, and getting clear on what you wanted before you did. So thank you for sharing that. And some of what you shared actually goes towards my next question, where at the beginning of this episode, I talked about this concept of a North Star that I've always had in my career and kind of how I've approached that. And for the listeners, what I mean by that is it's about asking yourself a set of questions that really bring home what matters to you as a person and also in your career. So asking yourself questions like, okay, what are my strengths? What are things that I'm really good at? What's my superpower? Like, what's uniquely me that just comes so naturally that for others, maybe they have to practice or they have to have training for, but for me, it's so natural. What are the things that I really want to develop that I think are holding me back from where I want to go? What type of work energizes me? Like, if I was doing this and not getting paid, I'd be totally fine. What work drains you? That is just like, Absolutely not. Like, this is just not something I want to do. It feels like a chore. Like, those are the things you're going to want to stay away from. But also be clear that every job is going to have some of that. But it's just a matter of what is that balance. Thinking about the impact that you want to make, what motivates you. Getting clear on your motivations is really important. When I think about my own, I'm not motivated by money. I want money. Don't get me wrong. Like, I want to be able to make good money, but that's not what is going to make me take my next career move. A promotion is not what's going to make me personally, Teresa, take my next career move. It's really going to be about what's the impact that I'm making? What value am I driving for the business? Those are the things that really give me energy and make me feel like I'm making a difference. So, getting clear on your motivations can help you get super clear on what you want to be able to do next. So, Felecia, when you reflect on your career, you talked a little bit about some of this, but what are some aspects of your North Star? What are the key things that you look for before taking on a new experience?
Oh, I love this. And, you really hit it on the nail too when you said that word impact, right? And for me, it's the same. It's like, what impact am I making? I love the ability to connect with people. I love to be able to see and to hear people and for the others to feel seen and heard by me too. So I think that is a driving factor and whatever, direction I'm going to be heading in, whether it's new experiences in my career, personally or professionally, that is a huge factor for me is the impact, but also am I able to have the individual be seen and heard by me?
Okay, so if we take this a step further, when you think about your North Star in your career, this is a deep question, but how do you feel that aligns with what you see as your personal purpose?
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to what we said too. Is like, for me, I feel like my purpose here in life is again for people to be seen and heard by me. I want to be able to connect with people. I'm like this with my friends, as you know that already, with my family, with my children, and people that I work with. I want to apply those same values to everyone. And I think it goes back to, again, feeling seen and heard. And I want
Mhm.
everyone to feel that way. I want to feel that way. And I think we all do. I don't think we want to be center of attention necessarily, but there's something different about being seen and heard by someone.
Absolutely. It goes to that whole sense of inclusion. Okay, so when I think about this, so a big piece of our career development is learning with and through others. And you talk through this a bit earlier in one of your earlier responses. If we think about the 70-20-10 learning model, that 20% is about learning with and through others. How have you leveraged your network to help you grow in your career?
So this is funny you're asking me this question because I don't know if you remember, but I messaged you after my first networking event and was like, someone asked me for coffee. Is that even appropriate? So new to networking. And now, like, I love to network. I love to build connections with people. And this is really how you thrive in your career. I mean, even just in life overall. I think it's one thing first before reaching out to anyone is understanding yourself, like we talked about, right? Doing that self discovery, asking yourself those questions, understanding your North Star and who you are. Or even if you're not quite sure yet, being vulnerable to even say that, right? So understanding your intention. And then it's really reaching out and leading with that vulnerability in those conversations too, and connecting with others. So for me, at least, I would just reach out to professionals within my organization that I wanted to learn more about. Maybe it was a senior leader, within another department that I just wanted to learn a little bit more about that industry. I would just send them an email and say, again, leading with the vulnerability, being transparent, and just saying, I just want 30 minutes of your time. I want to be able to learn a little bit more about, this industry, this organization here, etc. And most people are going to say yes to that. They love talking about themselves, but they also love the
Mhm.
transparency and that vulnerability that comes from the other side. So I always say that's a great way to really approach, a connection and then having those meaningful conversations too with them, being authentic about it, and then also following up with them. It's like if they gave you advice and you actually used it, respond back or follow up with them and say, like, hey, this suggestion you gave me, I used it. It really worked. Thank you for that. This just reciprocates again that authentic relationship. It shows that you're listening and that you're taking the advice and suggestions that are coming your way too and using them. That's how I really leveraged my network, was really being able to lead with that vulnerability, have meaningful, authentic conversations with people and following up with them. Not just saying, like, I got something out of this and you're never going to hear from me again, but really continuing to nurture that relationship with that connection. This is how you plant your seeds, and eventually something will grow from planting your seeds.
Yeah, and you know what? I really like that tip of following up afterwards. I will probably even do that myself because I don't think that I've naturally done that, but I can see how there would be power in circling back, especially if it's with a senior leader, circling back with them to help them understand how the advice or the insights they shared, you were able to apply what you've learned. One, it's just almost to me like a way of showing gratitude for their time. Like, it wasn't like you just heard it and that was it. You really applied it. I think that can be helpful. And I also think just from in my role working with senior leadership, they notice those kinds of things. And when it kind of helps you even further build that rapport. So I really like that tip, which kind of goes into my next question, which was going to be, what advice do you have for others on how they can build a professional network?
Mm. So I think it comes again with coming out your comfort zone, right?
Mm.
And knowing that you don't necessarily need to go to a big in person networking event per se, right? It's reaching out to previous colleagues, it's utilizing your LinkedIn profile, it's reaching out to your current colleagues in different departments and senior leadership and just asking for that time. It also could be asking for mentorship too.
Yeah, no, I think that that's great. And that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I often try to help others think about as they're navigating their career is that development experiences or growth can actually come from anywhere. And it doesn't just need to be from your day job. So maybe you learned about leadership by coaching a high school softball team, or maybe you learned about resilience and adaptability by taking care of your kids or your elderly parents. Just helping people see that growth is all around us. What are some ways that you've grown or developed a new skill that wasn't necessarily from your day job?
Yeah. So I say this a lot in my trainings too, by the way. Coming from property management to learning and development, we talked about having like those transferable skills, but ultimately I did not have the opportunity to public speak in property management. So I've joined other women's networks in and outside my organization. That really led me to the opportunity to have those public speaking moments where I was able to, talk in front of a group of people, whether that was virtually or in person. Sometimes there were motivational speeches, sometimes there were speeches on, certain specific topics. But overall, I think that helped me leverage this skill that I had that wasn't even aware of, and how that really applied to what I do now professionally.
I think that that's great. And I think you raise a really good point because even for me, before I was in roles that really gave me the opportunity to public speak, I was involved in things outside of my job, like sitting on nonprofit boards or volunteering that gave me an opportunity to lead in a new way, project and speak in other ways. So totally, totally agree with that. You and I both know from our own career journeys, but also as we think about our day jobs and how we coach others on their careers, you and I both know that navigating careers is not always easy. What's one of the most challenging career experiences that you've had, and how did you overcome it?
You know all my horror stories. I think one of the biggest challenges is not having that right managerial support, not getting the
Mm,
right leadership. But how I've overcome that, I think, in the past, and I'm thankful for those experiences because that really pushed me to own my own career. It really pushed me to advocate for myself and be a voice for myself. So it led me to have the courage to speak up in meetings and unapologetically share my ideas in front of others. I think it's led me to be able to make decisions and show self leadership within myself.
yeah, for sure. And speaking of some of the complexities that come with careers, let's talk a bit about balancing careers and ambitious career goals because let's be for real, we're both very ambitious women. Let's talk about how we balance that with raising a family or just our own personal lives. So, can you share some tips on how you balance your career with your personal life as a wife, a mother, and a friend?
Yes, this question is a good question. And I think it's because let's first start off. I mentioned that I'm a wife. I've been with my husband for a really long time. we grew up together, you know, and we went through a lot of growing pains together, as many couples do. But I think it's really important to have those check ins with each other. Our goals are always going to change. We're going to grow. We're going to become different people. And I think it's important to always have that clear communication with them of what are their goals? What do they want for the future? How can you support them in that? Versus looking at it from the aspect of how does that impact my own goals, but more so of how can I support my partner in this and vice versa. So it took us a long time to get there, but having those check-ins, just the other night we were up till 11 o'clock at night on a weeknight. That's a big deal
God
for us,
forbid.
right? But just talking about the future and what we want for ourselves individually as a team and as a family and how we can show up for each other. So it's really being able to communicate that. How does support look like for me? For me, it's when you pick up my Target pickup order so I don't have to go do it, right? Like that's showing support for me. And you mentioned motherhood too in this. And yes, I have two little beautiful girls that require a lot of attention, of course. And it's incredible. They teach me more about myself than I think I do with them. But one thing that I love to do is I love to include them in what I'm doing. So I actually show them what I do for work. Like if I'm creating a presentation, I'm like, hey, check this out. Look what mommy's doing here. And they're so fascinated by it because I think as children, we look at our parents as our superheroes. Like they are the coolest people on the planet until we get to teenage years. So I love being able to share that with them and showing them what mommy's doing and how hard mommy works. And that same work ethic is now applied to them. I see my daughter, who's 9, proactively study for an exam or wanting to do really good in a sport and putting that effort into it. And it's all about those core values that you show them in your own work. How are you working? If you're stressed and you're not happy with your job, you're going to impact your children. You're going to impact your household. So it's really important to understand how your happiness professionally does really impact your personal happiness.
Yeah, I think everything you just shared is really powerful. And I really do love just seeing how you and Steven support each other and the intentionality that you have and how you show up for your girls and how you are an example for your girls and starting them young with just having the right mindset in that they can do anything and they can see mommy do anything. So I just think that that's awesome.
Yeah, I
Um,
do also want to say though, real quick here, I am not superwoman by any means though. Like I think there's this misconception of like, you have to have the career, you have to, be the perfect wife, the perfect mom, the perfect employee. And it's not going to happen. Like I'm
no.
going to order Instacart. Like Target's not therapeutic for me. I'm going to do a Target pickup order and tell my husband, this is what support looks like for me. Go pick up the Target pickup order. Like and that's just reality. That's just what it is. There's sometimes that we're going to miss things and that's okay. And I learned to just take those experiences, say, I'm not perfect. And I think that's important to show as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's a really good build. For this next question, you talked a little bit about it in an earlier answer, but what would you say to someone that has a manager that isn't helpful or supportive in helping them navigate their career?
I like that question. I think even just based on my own experience, there's a couple ways you can do this. I encourage you to get a mentor. If you're
Mm,
not getting that leadership or that mentorship from your own direct manager, get it from somewhere else, whether it's in the organization or outside the organization. I definitely encourage that individual to get a mentor. It really does help just for you to stay focused on the goal rather than the emotions and what you want out of your career. They will help you keep you focused and balanced and provide that right direction for you. But I also think it's important to understand too that you have to take ownership in that. And it's advocating for yourself. It is, sharing, like we mentioned, like unapologetically sharing your ideas. And I always say this too. It's like when you have a manager that's not giving you that right support, stop asking, start requesting. This is what I need. This is how support looks for
mhm.
me. So it's just, again, taking that ownership of your own career.
I totally agree with both of those points. And another value to build on your point about mentorship is a lot of times those people that are your mentors are far removed from the situation itself. So they can give you a very objective perspective on things because they likely don't know the leaders that you're struggling with, or they don't know the dynamics or the corporate politics or whatever it is that you're currently challenged with. So they can really bring an objective perspective, which can sometimes help you see things in an entirely different way. And that ownership of your career is so important. It's definitely something that I coach employees on as well in my current day job. But it's just like you own the direction of your life, and your career is a big chunk of that. And if you're waiting on someone else to help guide you, you're at their mercy. And how is that fair to you? So, taking ownership of what it is that you want to do, finding that North Star, and then starting to take the steps to figure out how to get there. And hopefully, you have a manager that's there to support you. But if you
Agreed.
don't stop there. Yeah.
Yes, agreed with you. And like, I always see this like, don't wait in line for that promotion or opportunity. If they don't see your value, that doesn't mean you don't have to see your own value.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to understand your value and act on it.
For sure. Career growth might feel scary or complex for some people, especially if they're contemplating a shift in their career like what you've done. What do you think are some common misperceptions that people have when it comes to owning and shaping their career?
I think it's, I don't have experience in this field, so I can't do that. Or I don't know enough people, or I didn't get my degree in this. I think those are huge misconceptions. And it shows now a lot of companies also, I think Forbes put this article out in January, but organizations are understanding the importance of real transferable skills, like we discussed earlier. And they're understanding that that is a huge focus point. And a lot of employers are now looking for candidates that have those core people skills. So it's important to understand is no, you may not have those technical skills that you can learn on the job, but do you have those core people skills?
Mhm.
So I think that's the biggest misconception that I even receive when I'm talking to others when they're looking to change career fields or even just grow in their career.
Yeah, for sure. I think one build I would have as another misconception is I feel like people think they need to have it all figured out. Like, if I'm going to make a shift or if I'm going to try something new, if I'm going to leave my current day job, I need to know exactly what my career path is going to look like. And the reality is that no, you don't. There's so many different ways that you can get the experiences and the skills that you want that'll align to your North Star, that'll make you feel motivated, that'll give you the impact. So, you don't necessarily need to limit yourself to specific jobs or limit yourself to a destination role that you want to get. If you know where you want to go, like some people I know are like, I want to be like the next chief marketing officer of a big corporation. If you're clear on that, that's amazing. But the reality is, not all of us are that clear. So if you're not, it's okay. Because if you can get super clear on your North Star, then that'll really help you ensure that whatever your next move is, you're going to get something from it and it's going to be meaningful to you. And then as you go through that, you'll figure out what the next step is after that. That's how I've navigated my career so far, and it's at least helped me. So,
Absolutely. I mean, I think you make a great point with that too. It's like not having it all figured out. And the thing is, and the truth is, leadership doesn't either.
yeah,
So,
that's right. For sure. Okay, so before we wrap up, I have one more question. Can you share any tips or strategies for our listeners that they should keep in mind to help them build a meaningful career?
I love this. So I think first off, it's just knowing yourself, what you want, having those check ins with yourself, because what your wants were in your career 10 years ago may not be the same, now. Right. So it's
Mhm.
important to understand, to have those check ins with yourself, ask yourself questions. It's interesting in life. We ask everyone else questions. We never take the time to stop to ask ourselves those real questions. So I always say that's the first starting point to everything to build a purposeful, meaningful career. I also think it's important, like what we're talking about now, is understanding what are your driving factors? What are the experiences you want? And like you and I both discussed, and you mentioned this word impact, and it's huge. Like, what is the impact that you want to have?
Mhm.
And I think it's important to always ask yourself when you leave this world, you work 40 plus hours a week at this organization, this company, this place. How do you want to spend your time there? Is this where
Mhm.
you want to be? And I think that's important to really ask yourself that. That's going to create that purposeful, meaningful career for you. Those answers are going to start to come to you when you start asking yourself the right questions.
Love that. That's so good. I really loved the conversation that we had today. Before we close out this episode, let's talk through some recipes to better align our career with our values and our purpose. The first recipe is to define your North Star. When you can get clear on things like your values, motivators, strengths, non negotiables, and the type of work that really energizes you or drains you, it can really help you frame a picture of what you need to consider when it comes to your next career move. It creates a framework for you to be able to reflect on so that you can make intentional career decisions. The next recipe is to build your professional network. Don't underestimate how much you can learn from others. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but you'd be surprised how willing people are to talk to you about what they do and to help make connections for you. So, whether you want to learn more about the work that someone's doing, or maybe you want to learn a new skill that they're great at, don't be afraid to set up some time with them to connect. The next recipe is to own your career. It's not your manager's responsibility to define your career path, it's yours. Your manager should be there to guide you and to support you, but even if they aren't, don't let that stop you. You are empowered to build a career that you love. You should, of course, seek support along the way, whether that is from your manager or other colleagues or those in your network, but don't rely on them for everything. It's not their responsibility to figure it out. It's yours. The last recipe is to be true to you. Sometimes when it comes to your career, you might have maybe loved ones or maybe even a really involved manager that has a vision of what your career could or should look like. Sometimes when people are aware of what they see as our strengths, they come up with their own ways on how we should apply those strengths. But remember, this is your career. So be true to you and what you want. Stay aligned to your North Star. That will help you build a meaningful career. Felecia, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, it was great to be here. Thank you for having me and just having a meaningful conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a really good conversation, and I hope that everyone enjoyed this as much as we did. And for all of the listeners out there, just remember you own your career. You can shape what your career looks like. Make it meaningful, be intentional. And if you're in a job that you don't feel motivated by at the moment, don't get discouraged. I know it's hard, I've been there, but you can find moments within your current role to start preparing for what you want to do next. And those development moments may even come from opportunities outside of your role and in your personal life. You have to remember that growth is all around you, and we should all embrace every moment of it. I look forward to chatting with you all again next week. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. God bless. And that's a wrap. Another candid chat among friends. If today's episode resonated with you, hit that follow button, share the episode with your friends, and leave a review. I would love to hear what resonated most and love to hear any of the thoughts that you have on the episode. Hope to see you soon, and don't forget to drop your questions or insights on our Instagram at Ressa's Take.